One of the reasons why I've talked about this adaptation thing is because I'm actually starting to get to a point right now where it's really frustrating hearing a lot of people talk about things in the fighting game community and being like, oh, this is not how it was like in the arcades. Like, oh, we yelled at each other in the arcades. You just had to get used to it. Or in the chat, everyone's like, why do you want to sanitize chat? I mean, we'll get into that in the sub-only chat, it's because, that's not fighting games community. It's arcade and blah, blah, blah. And there's just all this kind of like weird concept between what people seem to think the arcade culture was. And I really feel like sometimes that these people who are claiming that were never even there, because I don't know.
Well, you and I both know people who do claim to be OG, and we had never seen them until just, right. Not even 09, but like later than that. So that phenomenon is real.
Yeah. And look, I get maybe my experience is different than a lot of other people, but I grew up in SoCal, okay? SoCal arcades are not necessarily the nicest place and everything like that. But one of the things that's driving me nuts is there seems to be this idea that being in the arcades really was about taking it to the parking lot and everyone fighting and everything like that, right? I mean, yeah, there are definitely instances of these kind of things happening, but for the most part, like, I think that people are kind of exaggerating what it was, and it was very different in the arcades because it was face-to-face.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You couldn't posture. You couldn't yell at somebody and get away with it. Like, if you yelled at somebody, you never know if that person had friends.
Sure.
Even if they were smaller than you. You know what I mean? Like, basically, you couldn't, like, you really had to make sure that you could back yourself up. And another thing, too, about, arcade culture was that, I talk about this a lot, no matter what, if you had your quarter and you put it up on the machine, you were allowed to play. Sure. No, like, I feel like people think back then we chased people out of arcades. You know what I mean? Or like, you come to play in our territory and then we like kick him while he's on the floor and then we throw him in. Like basically what people did back in the arcades was when you actually put the quarter up, if we didn't like you, we just tried to beat your ass in the game in the most embarrassing way possible, right, so you'd never come back.
Right.
But the thing about it is, the players who did keep coming back, even if we beat them up, you kind of gain this weird respect for them. And then, this happened with me too at UCLA. When I played at UCLA, there was a player who came to UCLA, was one of the strongest players. He played with Tomo and Watson and, and LA Akira and all those guys named George. And yeah, he never talked to me. He gave me the stink eye every single time I saw him and everything. And he was really, really a jerk kind of to me, but more in the fact that he obviously just wouldn't acknowledge my existence kind of thing.
Right.
And then I started beating him. And randomly one day he's like, let me take you to this arcade where some other good players are. I want to show you, I want you to like show them how good you are. So, like, it just changed. Wow. And then after that we were friends, like every time we saw each other, he'd be like, hey, James, Wow. It's really weird. But that's what it was, you earned the respect through the game. And what a lot of people seem to have this idea of the arcade culture was that it was just nothing but pure like fighting and like nobody, like everyone physically kicking each other and stuff like that. Again, I mean, this is a weird thing for me to talk about because obviously Southern Hills Golfland ended up closing because someone got shot at the arcade, but that was over Super Ghouls and Ghosts. It wasn't even a fighting game, right? That's so weird. It's I don't think that people really understand the kind of arcade culture respect that was there, and not only that, but because there was only one CVS2 machine, one Third Strike machine, et cetera, we played all the fighting games. Sure. Nobody was like, oh, this game sucks. I mean, people would say that, but then...
That did happen, but,
right, but
most people played multiple games.
Right, exactly, and it wasn't like... It just wasn't so negative. Like, someone would just be like, nah, I don't like that game. You know what I mean? And then that's kind of how it went. And I mean, this is also coming from me, which I literally told somebody at Southern Hills Golfland one time, I was like, nobody likes you.
Dang.
Like, I actually got super mad at somebody one time.
Wow.
And this is coming from me, but again, there was never any fisticuffs or anything like that. But, you know, I just think that there's a lot of misunderstanding, and what a lot of people feel like the arcade culture was we are allowed to be mean to each other. We're allowed to be rude. We're allowed to talk shit to each other. And like I said, you were in the arcade, you were face to face. If you talk shit and couldn't back it up, you know, you would eat a fist, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And there was this mutual respect in the arcade. There was still always the order of the arcade, the law of the arcade, that if you put your quarter up, you can play. Like I said, that's my experience. I don't know if other people have had different experiences that are much more violent than my experiences, but that's kind of how...
I mean, I've definitely heard of people who had more violent experiences than you did or than I did. You know, you and I were playing you were at UCLA, I was at UC Berkeley. You then played at, you know, one of the best, strongest arcades that's like specifically for good players in the country. And I guess I did the same when I moved back to LA. So I don't know how representative those are, but even from people who I've talked with who do say that they did have more violent experiences, it's still, you're like condensing what happened in 10 years into like the 3 most violent things that happened.
Right.
So like it is true that occasionally people were beat up. I never saw that, but I do know people who did have that experience. It is true, as you said, somebody got shot. I have heard of people getting stabbed, but these are like the things that stand out to the person retelling it because they were the 2 or 3 craziest things they saw playing in the arcade for like 10 years. So it's not at all what the norm was. The norm was definitely that people were reasonable. You know, not always nice, but reasonable, and rarely violent. Right. You know, rarely violent. It happened, but it was rare. I mean, for me, definitely rare.
The worst that I've ever had was someone at a 7-Eleven smacking me in the back of the head. They were definitely mad at me for kind of laughing about how a round ended when I killed them in a weird way.
Okay.
And then also at a UCLA tournament for hyper fighting, mind you. And this is like years later where throwing is not even cheap anymore. Like some guy actually was like, I was playing Zangief and I SPD'd him and he'd be like, you better not throw me again. And like, I thought he was joking, okay? Because like, that's the joke that you make when you play hyper fighting, right? So I was like, ha, and I SPD him again, and he literally stood up out of his stool and like kind of lurched over me. And I just looked at him and was like, everybody in this arcade is my friend. Like, you are gonna die if you try anything right now.
That's a good response.
Yeah, and like afterwards, he was like, yeah, I didn't know who you were, so you know, me and my friends just don't like to play cheap. I'm like, whatever, dude. Scrub, come on, dude.
For sure. Yeah, I mean that similar stuff happened to me. I remember playing Vega and Super Turbo, and I just did like walk up, stand short, grab, like however many times. Not even anything fancy, and it wasn't even like wall dive stuff. And yeah, the guy got mad and you know didn't want to deal with it. That actually happened not long ago in 2017 when I went to one of those barcades.
Oh no!
In LA. Yeah, they had hyper fighting there, and I was playing boxer, and the other guy was whatever. And I did a headbutt loop.
Oh, right.
And the dude was mad in 2017. So, you know, whatever. That stuff, that happened to me, I don't know, certainly fewer than half a dozen times ever.
Right.
In 15 plus years of playing fighting games in arcades. So it's very rare. For the most part, it's certainly, at least in my experience, people were pretty nice.
Yeah.
I was really shy, and so I didn't make many friends at the arcade at the time. But everybody else was making friends, and I'm sure they would have been open to having me be friends with them. I was just weird about it. There were definitely weirdos who were treated a little bit differently. Like we had CCG, the crazy Chinese guy, at Berkeley, who was. You know, he would be like begging out on the street for a quarter, and then he'd come in and play, and he would just like mash as maximum as possible, and you know, play whatever.
Wait, that wasn't William Hung, right?
No, that wasn't William Hung. But I was just gonna say we also had William Hung, who we didn't like actively rip on until he went on to the whatever show that was. So in general, people were like reasonable.
Right. And
that's the point.
There were times where I would go to the Southern Hills Golfland, and there were times where I probably partially just really didn't like Vi because I couldn't beat him, and I would just get so frustrated trying to fight against him. And you would lose one game, you got to go to the back of the line and wait 25 minutes, 30 minutes for your turn to come back up. But no matter what happened, no matter how frustrated anybody got with each other, after the arcade closed at like 2 or 3 a.m., one of the favorite parts was everybody going to Denny's or Norm's afterwards. Right. And it would be those same guys who were all like trying to beat each other up and getting mad at each other, sitting there and complaining to each other's faces and talking about strategy, or even not even talking about fighting games at all. And that was probably like, I never skipped that because it was one of the best parts of the night, was hanging out with everybody and eating that dinner. And even though I would get home at like 5 a.m. and have to go to work the next day, it was painful and stuff. Yeah. So, but that's the way it was. So, I mean, honestly, as much as there was the negative aspect of the arcade culture, what a lot of people don't talk about is the positive aspect of it. Like, the amount of friends that I've made. Like, if it wasn't for Southern Hills Golfland, I wouldn't know guys like Visant. I wouldn't know guys like Vi. I wouldn't know, a ton of these guys. And, these are people that to this day, if I see, I can just be like, yo, what up? And we're still great friends. And that's what a lot of people are not talking about in the arcade culture, which is why I kind of titled it Arcade Culture Myths. There's just this weird thing now that everybody seems to try to paint the arcade culture as this really evil, violent, like crazy, exclusionary kind of craziness.
Yeah. But, you wouldn't have stuck around if that's how it was.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have stuck around if that's how it was. Oh, I mean, I think the point of all this is that in trying to decide what is important about the FGC now and what's worth keeping, a big part of it is we want to carry on aspects of arcade culture that we liked.
Yes.
And so in having that discussion, you have to be accurate about what arcade culture was. It wasn't everybody being a jerk. There were times when people were jerks. But primarily, it was about people playing video games with each other and mostly getting along at least reasonably, and people being able to play regardless of what color they were, whether they were gay or straight or whatever. I feel like those are like the much more important sides of it. And it was about you could certainly rip on people, but that's a little different than like outright attacking. I mean, it's not really the same thing. You don't, when you rip on somebody, I mean, your intention may be to like make them feel bad, but it's not kind of in the same way as like an actual attack. You're saying that they are terrible at game,
right,
or whatever. Maybe they smell, who knows? But there's an aspect of ribbing in it that's sort of at least minimally jovial. That's not the same as just outright attacking. So that. I think that's... Yeah. So, I mean, back in the arcades, sure, if you saw someone new, you might give them the side eye and just really want to see if they could prove themselves. Well, of course, yeah.
Today, if you see a new person at an event, you're nice to them. And that's like, it's not that we're softening up or that we're, oh my God, like we got to maintain this arcade culture and every new person who comes in, we've got to be skeptical of them. Like, yeah, be welcoming to people. The fact that we're trying to make the FGC open and welcome to people to try to remove a lot of the negativity, that's, like I said, it's adaptation. It's what we're good at, and that's the reason why we play fighting games, because we're good at adaptation. We're not stubborn and to be stuck in things that are no longer useful, right? It's like playing Street Fighter 4 coming from Third Strike and thinking that you can jump all day because of parries, right? And
which
if you
people
don't,
definitely did.
Yeah, exactly. And people did at first. And if you don't stop jumping in that game, you'll never win. And so you got to adapt to what the situation is. So it's not mutually exclusive to be a better environment and still maintain the arcade culture. Both of those things can coexist. And again, I like from my position, I'm going to keep trying to make sure that happens. You know, that's just from what I can do with it. So
for sure. Yeah. So people asking about the William Hung story. I know I've told it a lot, but if you haven't heard it, this guy William Hung, you know, on what was that show?
American Idol.
American Idol, of course. He was the famous like she bangs guy. Terrible at singing, obviously horrible. He used to come into the Berkeley arcade, the Bearcade, and he was not good at fighting games, but he came in and played, and like nobody hated him or whatever. He just wasn't very good. We thought he was a little weird because he always played exactly the same way, never seemed to learn or get better or anything.
Right.
Which we always thought was like kind of like weird, I guess, but we weren't like attacking him or anything like that. And then during college, he went on American Idol. That was while he was in school still. I remember it's true that he did win a dorm singing contest before he went on American Idol. That's part of why he felt like he could go on American Idol. Unfortunately, he was the only person who entered the dorm singing contest. So,
that's awesome.
From what I heard, he dropped out of Berkeley to pursue his singing career, which is kind of a bummer.
Ooh, okay.
Obviously, that didn't go well. And then I heard that he was going to CSUN.
Okay.
This is some years ago at this point, so hopefully it's all figured out now. But yeah, that was weird. It was super weird. We were just watching TV. I wasn't really friends with the arcade guys. I was too shy. So I was just with my like other friends. We were watching TV and we saw an ad for American Idol, and it was that guy on the TV. I couldn't believe it, you know. So I went on SRK into the Bearcade thread, and people had posted the same exact thing. They couldn't believe it's that guy. That was him.
It's awesome.
Definitely weird.
Oh man. Oh, that's funny.
Anyway.
Okay.
I'm sure he got laid a lot.
he bangs.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Do you want to just jump over to the next kind of? It's kind of tangentially related.
Sure.
Is the sub-only chat thing that Spooky did during NCR this weekend? And I know, like, I wasn't aware of anything that what happened until I saw Spooky write a bunch of series of tweets, and he was just like, you know what, like, he was kind of frustrated with the whole thing because he was just like, look, the chat was really terrible. It was just everyone saying, I hate this game, when's this game, when's that game, et cetera, et cetera. And then, like, he was also saying that, like, for some reason, even though Team Spooky is one of the most watched channels in all of Twitch, you know, like, it just has no subs, you know? And so once he moved it to sub mode only, he got like 200 extra subs and stuff like that. And it's not cheap doing the kind of stuff that they're doing, you know?
Oh man, no.
And I mean, the FGC is still very poverty, right? And so, you know, a lot of people I know kind of got mad at him and everything like that. But again, I was really happy to kind of see him do that because I know on Twitter I railed about it recently, about the really annoying thing that's happening now, which is everybody's always talking about, I hate this game. Like, that's what the chat is mostly now, is this game sucks. Hey, look how many views this other game got. This game sucks. This game sucks. And this game sucks. Like, it's just, like I said, I want to make the FGC a more welcoming environment, and seeing that in chat, if you're new to the FGC, just doesn't help. You know, it doesn't. Yeah. And a lot of people have said when they go to their first events, they're always like, wow, this is nothing like the chat. Like, I didn't think it would be like this. You know, everyone's super cool, you know, and it's such a different environment from the chat to being actually there. And again, I know a lot of the people in the chat are always just like, you need a thicker skin and blah, 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 blah. But it's just like, just don't be an asshole, you know what I mean? Like, there's just no, like, why? Let's try to just do what we can to make it a more welcoming environment. I just don't see what's wrong with that. So
no, I'm fine with it. I've been, you know, that's fine with me. Mm-hmm. we need to do more than just put it on sub modes. So, there's more stuff to attack at the roots, like trying to get people to recognize that other games are also fun, even if you don't like them that much. Just let other people have their fun.
Right.
So I feel like we have to work more on that. And that's not it. Just by the way, when Dawn, when Yohosi was playing on stream, I mean, she was getting the same crap that anybody who's transgender or a woman or whatever gets whenever they're on stream. Or just if they're not like a white guy, There's always, even if it's a black guy, there's like the tri-hex faces constantly.
Right.
There's more stuff that to sort of get at the root that we need to do. But at the same time, totally fine with sub mode and making it. I get that as somebody watching, you want to type in the chat. I do the same thing. I type in the chat even when there's 50,000 people in there, and I know that nobody's going to get to see me, and all I'm saying is like, whoa, I do that too.
Right. Fun. Absolutely.
It's definitely fun.
I wanted to respond to someone who was typing the nooch in chat, except they didn't put a T in there, so I was mad. So I wanted to write to him that it should be NEUTCH. But I wasn't a sub, so I couldn't.
Bummer. Yeah. No, I mean, I get why it's frustrating, but at the same time, I'm fine with cutting out some of that crap, and I'm often on team /pop-out. Type in that URL /pop-out and just watch it, because if the stream gets too big, then even I don't even bother typing "whoa" in the chat. Just watch. So it's not a big deal to me, and I really want for Spooky to get financial support. It's, as you said, it's really expensive. Arturo was talking a little bit more about it. He thinks that he probably has $20,000 or more worth of equipment, which is a huge amount.
Right.
Just incredible. And even some streamers who you don't think of as being like the Team Spooky level of streaming, or even NYC Furby or whatever, they also have 5 digits worth of equipment. They also do. So even people who will stream weekly and they're getting a few hundred people to watch, or if that, they have also invested a huge amount of money in this because they want to make it work. So it's not an easy thing to do. That's for sure. And if we can support them a little bit better, then I'm all for it. I sub to a couple of folks for exactly that same reason.
Yeah, I mean, when I had my day job, I subbed continuously to IE Battlegrounds and a bunch of other channels, right? So obviously I can't do that now, but I mean, long story short though, I mean, like, a lot of people sometimes ask me like, oh, hey, what are the headphones that Spooky uses and stuff like that? And every time I give them the answer, it's like this crazy Sennheiser kind of thing for the commentators, and you go to Amazon, those headsets are like $250 or $300.
Even more than that. For sure.
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah. The Callisto is one of the people I'm thinking of. Callisto has a giant amount invested in streaming, and he doesn't get the viewership to make that financially worthwhile. So I'd love for there to be more support, and at the same time, have chat be a little bit less gross.
Right.
You're not going to get everybody on the internet to always be nice.
Right.
There's going to be jerks in there. It's going to happen. Even in best case scenarios, it still will survive. So, although, like I said, I do think we have to attack some of those roots a little bit and try to make it better. You're never going to get 100% cool.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. So I'm all right with having sub mode on. It's, by the way, he's not always going to have it on sub mode. He said that he's going to have it on Sundays, finals days, but the rest of the event maybe not. Other events certainly not. His own streaming at home, not going to do that. So it's not like he's completely isolating himself.
Right.
It's just going to be those big days where there's big viewership.
Yeah, and it's like you said, probably trying to attack some of the roots of the problem is probably a little more important. But again, it's like, you know what, My train of thought is a little messed up right now, so I've completely forgot what I was going to say now all of a sudden, but continue forward.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay. I mean, even just here in the UltraChen studio, like the amount of money that I've spent on random things in here has been pretty crazy. You know, it's been pretty ridiculous. So.
Yeah, not easy.
Yeah, but hopefully, one of the things that I just really hope, and I kind of want to do this as a series of videos as well. Like, I've always been teaching people how to play fighting games. I actually want to try to teach people how to watch fighting games. Like, if you don't know Tekken, this is what you should look for, the very basics. If you don't know Injustice, this is what you should look for. And that way, maybe when you're watching them, you don't get so bored and you don't feel the temptation to go into chat and, just try to troll everybody by telling everybody how crappy a game is. So.
Yeah. I think Curly W brings up a good point, which is that Street Fighter V is on Capcom Fighters channel. Injustice is on the NRS's channel. Isn't Tekken on?
Yeah,
Tekken
you're
now?
right. It is on Tekken nowadays. Yeah.
So even if you're spooky and you're trying to depend on ad revenue or subs or something, there are fewer opportunities even on finals day to get people looking at your stream.
Right.
I want to point out that when there is a Capcom Fighters stream or a NetherRealm Studios stream, they're paying people. It's not like they're doing it for free.
Right.
So it's not maybe as bad as if it were just completely excising.
Leeching off of that.
Right. Yeah, that's not what's happening. They're doing a pretty good job.
Right.
So, but it is true that there are fewer opportunities for people to see Team Spooky, the channel, on finals days than there used to be.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's all for that one. You want to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll go into the results of NCR and all that, and Anime Ascension, as well as Bum's Birthday, all taking place this weekend.
Of course, Tekken channel's only for master events, which NCR was not?
Yeah, NCR was not a master event. It was on
go.
Team Spooky. Team Spooky was
There you
actually
go.
streaming it there. So.
Yeah, and same for Street Fighter and Injustice. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, anyway, yeah, let's take a break.
All right, we'll be right back, guys. We'll be right back. Pizza. Go to the break. Go to the break. There we go.